Hello, everybody. Happy July. Oh my goodness. I cannot believe how fast it has flown by. Let me know in the comments if you're here live or if you're watching after the fact on a replay. I still want to say hello to you. I still want to talk to you and answer your questions. So please comment when and where you're at and what's going on in your life. A lot of my clients are actually taking a lot of July off. So I've had a ton of time to redo, well, and by a ton of time, I mean, do we ever have a ton of time? But had a lot of time to redo a bunch of my systems in my whole business. And it has been very fun slash a little bit stressful to switch things up. I do not love change, but the nature of working in a social media space, I have to be okay with change. I have to kind of look into things. So I've been looking into different softwares that can help my team be more efficient. And I have been kind of tweaking my Notion system. If you've been around here before, you know how much I love Notion to make all of the things work. And I've been tweaking some things there. And the biggest thing I've spent some time working on that has been long overdue is I have started updating a lot of things on my website. So I put a QR code here if you're interested. Even if you just want to go look at the updated website and tell me what your thoughts are, I would love that. But I've added a bunch of my systems for live streaming there to try to help people who I can't work with on a retainer or a monthly basis, so that you can just kind of copy my systems and either hand them off to your VA or you take them and run with them. But I'm very excited about that. So let me know what you think if you get in there. So first and foremost, if you don't know me, I like to refer to myself as a content traffic cop. So I'm a live stream producer. I built my whole business around the fact that I have little ones at home with me, and I want other people that have little ones to be able to work. And so what I do is help with content strategy, specifically on LinkedIn and YouTube, and specifically surrounding live streaming, because I think live streaming is such an easy way to produce content and still show up consistently online without spending hours writing, rewriting, editing, all of that fun stuff that goes into content. And I don't know if you're like me, you've noticed that there's just video content just keeps getting more and more complex, and the editing behind that gets more and more complex. And I actually think there is a space for people who just want to see you. They don't need all the crazy graphics and things. They just want to connect with you. So that's what I love about live streaming. I also love the fact that it gives you access to your audience immediately versus having to respond to comments or going in your DMs. And I'm the type of person that will read something and want to respond really thoughtfully and then never respond because I never come back to it. So that's another reason that I love live streaming. So today's show is all about managing guests on your live show or your podcast. Live show and podcasting kind of go hand in hand. You can do both. If you have a podcast, I highly recommend just turning it into a live stream so that when you're recording with your guest, you're going live versus just recording maybe on Zoom or something else, because then you kind of get two pieces of content for one. So that's kind of why I love saying podcast and live show, because it can be both. So before we dive into that, one thing I love to do is share my wins and fails of the month every month. My big win for July, all of our wins, honestly, is that StreamYard is in the process. It's in beta right now, but they're in the process of releasing a link that is going to be the same for each show. So what that means is if you have a podcast where you're recording weekly and you have different guests that are coming in weekly, you can have the same link for all of the guests. There's a couple of concerns that come up with this, and I totally understand. If you're sending out this same link to multiple guests, there's a chance that other guests from previous times that you've recorded have access to your studio, right? for me, I don't think that that is a huge concern because most people aren't just going to randomly pop into your studio, and you're also not going to just add them to the screen. So that's one concern I've seen around the Facebook group for StreamYard, that I think is worth talking about. But I also think kind of like the pros outweigh the cons on this one, because what it means when you have the same link that you're going to be sharing with the guest who comes on your screen, that's what I'm referring to when I say guest, um, is going to be super helpful for emails. So what I'm going to talk to you about in a little while is email templates to send to your guests. And that same link can be there. Whereas right now, what I have to do and what my team has to help me with is update the StreamYard link for every guest that comes through. But that is changing, and I'm so excited to see just like a shareable link so that moving forward, every guest on my show, your show, has the same link to join, so your email templates can kind of just work for you without you having to update that. So I'm very excited about that. My fail of the month, my pumpkin patch has gone out of control. So I have been trying to figure out gardening. Now this is like my third year. I'm very, very proud of myself. But this year I thought it would be fun to have a couple of pumpkins. And turns out we have a whole pumpkin patch. Like it's taking over everything. So that's kind of my fail of July. So let me know in the comments your wins and your fails, because we're all about celebrating the failures here. That's how we grow. And so I always like to kind of put that in there. So first and foremost, let's dive into it. So that's my wins and my fails. Check, check. Here are the 3 tips that we're going to go through. So researching guests. Tip 1, how I do that. How I help my clients do that. Tip 2, scheduling system. So once you decide somebody is a good fit for your show, how you get their information from them. And tip 3, an emailing system. That's like to kind of help your guests remember and know what expectations you have for your show. So that's the third one. If we have time for it, my bonus tip is how to get your guests to promote the conversation, because obviously that's the goal. You want them to walk away from it and share it with all of their people. So, as we talk, if you have questions, please pop them in the chat. Like, I would love to help you kind of brainstorm your show and your content and systems, and see like what's working, what's not working. So, first off, tip number 1: creating a system to track like future guests. So, what I mean by this is usually within the first 6 months of a show, even if you're going live weekly, but say you're going live monthly, you can usually name 6 people who are in your network who would join you. People who your friends, your colleagues, anybody that you're like, oh yeah, like they would love to hop on a live stream with me or a podcast with me. After that, it kind of gets more difficult. I've seen this with several clients where when I first start working with them, they're like, you know what? I think I've got that. Like, I don't need you to worry about like helping me research guests or come up with guests for the show. Then around 6 months to a year, we kind of get to a point of like our options have dried up and we're like, oh my gosh, like who's going to join? Um, who would be good for this topic? That kind of thing. So I have a whole Google sheet that I created for me and my clients to kind of track like who the person is, what channels they're like showing up on, and how well their content's doing, and whether or not like we think that they'd be a good fit for the show. So basically, I can go in once a month and put a list of people that I'm like, oh, I just when I'm scrolling on LinkedIn or something, I see somebody I drop it in there, and kind of just keeping track of people that I think would be a good fit for certain shows. Because, like I said, some shows somebody would fit that somebody else wouldn't. So it's kind of just like a place for me to like brain dump all of the potential guests. And then my client can go in there and kind of be like, yes, no, yes, no. And then we can pursue like either getting the email address from them or responding back. Maybe they've pitched to us that they want to come on the show, and I kind of track that in that Google Doc. I have moved it to Notion because I am a Notion person now. But I have on my website a Google Doc for you if you want to copy that system, and then you can kind of communicate with if that's like somebody on your team, whatever it is, just kind of dropping some names of people that you think would be really great guests. And then I also I like link their profile to whatever profile makes sense for them. So you go through that, you see who makes sense. I usually do red, green, yellow, kind of like meh, yes, no, that kind of thing. And then tip number two is you need to have like a super solid, easy scheduling system. Because again, I think this is one that you're like, oh, it's fine. I can just send them an email and ask them for their headshot and their bio, and it'll be fine. But usually what happens, even if you're emailing them, they say, okay, we can like, let's schedule a podcast for August 3rd to record. And you're like, awesome, sounds great. Neither of you are going to think about it until August 1st. And then you're going to be like, oh crap, I don't have the headshot. I don't have like an introduction for you. I don't have anything that you want to promote. That's one that I really love to have in my questions for somebody is like, how can we help you promote your work and help our audience see your awesomeness? Like I want that to be one of the focus of my like guests that join me is like what are you working on. So I have a whole like list of the questions that I use in Calendly is one of those softwares. I'm sure you've heard about it. A lot of people have used it in the past couple of years. And then another option would be like Honeybook. I even think Dubsado probably has some sort of scheduling option so that you can put in these questions and have your potential guest fill out a form one time, go through it, give you all of the information that you need in order to promote the show effectively and in order to create graphics for the show. Maybe you need a headshot from them. This is another thing that like headshots, like I'll grab a guest headshot from Google that I think looks really great and I thought was cute. And I'll have a guest come back and be like, oh, I hate that headshot. Can we please change it? And this is why I've created that as like one of my questions is because I'm like, I want you to provide me with the headshot that you love of yourself so that when we promote the conversation, it's something that you feel comfortable with. So has that in there, has a little bit more information about the show of like what to expect from the audience. Maybe a couple of expectations of like, it's okay for us to talk about this. Let's steer away from that kind of thing. And just having a really solid system that every guest gets from you to gather that information. The tricky thing I've done is I have connected my Calendly link with my Notion board. So when somebody schedules on Calendly, it automatically populates all of those answers in my Notion for that specific client. For that specific client for that specific show, and then I have like all of that information right there in Notion, which was there was some Zapier involved. It was a little tricky, but I'm very glad that it's set up now. One thing that I've seen that is a mistake I've made and several of my clients have made is like when you're scheduling one of your friends or somebody who you know really well, you don't send them through the system because you're like, oh, well, I already know everything about them. Like, I don't really need them to fill out a bio. I don't really need them to tell me what they're promoting. Like, I get their newsletter, I know what they're promoting. Um, and assumptions, my friend, is where we get off, where this is like where things get rocky, right? And so like for example, we had one guest who was working on a book and we had known about that because we were more friendly with them. We knew that they were working on this book and we were very excited about it. And host mentioned that there was a book coming out soon and she was like, oh my gosh, I haven't gone public with that yet, like and we're like, oh crap. So that's kind of the sort of thing that like I know systems, they will help us kind of make things organized and smooth. Natasha says, I saw a Google Calendar just came out with a scheduler similar to Calendly. Ooh, I'm very excited about that. I want to learn more about that. It kind of does seem like every tool right now is sharing like features with each other. So That's cool. That's very exciting. And I wonder if there is a way to connect that with Notion. Anyway, so creating a scheduling system, super important. I have all of my questions that I ask on that in my document as well. So, and then my third tip is email templates. So, this is kind of like, this is kind of a hard one. And if you're here live or you're watching the replay, let me know in the comments. When you are a guest on somebody else's show, do you want A, all of the information, like give me the most information so that I'm completely prepared? Or do you want B, just enough information to get you through? So, like, I don't want to get bogged down with like a million things to read. Just tell me what I need to do, tell me where I need to be and when I need to be there. So, let me know in the comments, like A or B, what kind of person are you? Because this is something that I struggle with each of my each time that I send these emails and I don't hear back from my guest, I'm like, okay, is this too much information? Like, do I need to kind of like make it super skimmable, super readable? Like, or is it that they're appreciating all of the information? Um, they're just not responding, which again, like I'm totally that person who will read something and not respond. Okay, so Natasha says B, just enough information. Like you just want enough information to get you there and have you show up. Okay, interesting. My other Natasha's saying B as well. Um, because I think I am an A person and not everybody's an A. Okay, Karina, A, I want all the info, but in a short, sweet way. And maybe that's what I need to do is kind of go back through my email templates and shorten them because I will admit, as new features have popped up on StreamYard, for example, there is an option for my guests to stream to their audience. I love that. And I want them to use that feature. So I added it in there. But now I think that the emails are too long, right? So maybe I go through and I kind of edit those because I am an A person. I want all of the information. I'm not going to respond back to you every single time, but I do want to know exactly what you're expecting from me, exactly what I can do to make the show a success. So yeah, it's been a struggle of mine. I will say though that every guest that I have on, so certain clients of mine allow me to be like the most involved with the guest process and others kind of like to handle it themselves. And I will say the clients of mine where I have like full reign of like being in charge of guest management, I usually get feedback that they felt super prepared, that they were like excited to join the show because they felt really taken care of. And so that's what I don't want to lose. But it is a hard line, I think, of giving enough information and not too much. So I have what I have been doing, but obviously you can tweak it to make like for whatever your show makes sense for to have. But I send out an email to my guests 2 weeks in advance to remind them of the show because a lot of times I will have scheduled out like months in advance and sometimes people forget or maybe something came up and they have travel and they forgot like oh yeah we were going to record at that time. So 2 weeks in advance I kind of say like hey just a reminder, I'm so excited to have you join the show. Here's what we're talking about. If you think of anything in the next couple weeks about this, let me know. And that kind of like triggers their mind to kind of be paying attention to things like, for example, for this show, if I had a guest, I would say, hey, just want to let you know on July 23rd, we're going live and we're talking about managing guests. And then like over the last 2 weeks, hopefully things have kind of like jogged your memory of like, oh yeah, maybe I should mention that on Shelby's show. So 2 weeks in advance, I send one. A week in advance is when I send one that's getting a little lengthy. It's getting a little much. So in that I kind of say like here's a graphic to promote the episode. Here is a link for you to connect your StreamYard if you would like to also stream it to your audience at the same time that I'm streaming to my audience. And like here's what to expect from our show. So that one is a little long, I will admit, but I think is the most helpful because it kind of outlines the expectations of the show and it also reminds them like you're going to come into the studio at 12:45 but we're going to go live at 1, kind of things like that where sometimes when I've been a guest on other people's podcast, I'm like, okay, is that like when we're actually live, or is that when we're just checking light and sound, that kind of thing. So that's the week out. And then I do one the day of, saying like, hey, we're live, like today, here's the link. And I am very grateful for that one, because I have had a couple of times where people have forgotten or ignored my other emails. And that one is like, oh, yeah, today is the day. Like, awesome. And then I also send one after the show, just thanking them, because I think that the gratitude piece of this is sometimes lost, because we're excited about our show and then we say goodbye and it's over. But really, having guests on your show is a huge, not a huge ask of them, but it is an ask of them to spend that time with you and with your audience. And you want it to be just as beneficial for them as it is for you. So you want to make sure that they're able to promote what they want to promote, and that they're enjoying the conversation as well. It's not all just about promoting things. And so that's kind of like how I make sure that they feel appreciated after. So let's see. Natasha says, if action is needed, I need less info. Otherwise, I get lost. Yes, I have learned this. But if no action is needed, I appreciate all of the info. That's interesting. Yeah. So maybe it's like making the action items very clear. Maybe that's what I need to like go in and refine with my system. So July is my month of tweaking things. So I think I will probably end up tweaking that one email, but it's been good. It really has. And it's probably my favorite thing about producing live shows, is getting to meet other people and being behind the scenes of some really awesome conversations. Like, I love, love, love being behind the scenes of my conversations of my clients. And the funny thing is not only is it like the guests joining us in the actual live stream, but the people who join in the comments, that I love having just that time blocked out to kind of connect and network online. It's been huge for me, for my business. It's been great. So, okay, my bonus tip. If you have questions, please let me know. But I'm going to dive into my bonus here, is making it easy for your guests to promote the conversation. So, like I mentioned earlier, I like to send them a graphic um, promoting the show. So it's usually a graphic with 3 bullet points of what we plan to talk about. Because it's live, it's not similar to how I've done this stream today. I have 3 things that I'm trying to cover. I don't have a script here of like exactly what I need to cover. I just have 3 ideas. And that's the same thing that I will put on that promotion poster with guests, is three talking points that we'll be going over. So I provide that to them. And then usually I say, like, hey, if you'd like to connect your destination on StreamYard, meaning if you would like to stream to your audience at the same time we stream to my audience, here's the instructions to do that. And I would just make it easy for them to copy and paste my title and my caption and put it in their software, so that when we're live, they're live and they get to promote the conversation too. Because more often than not, people want to promote the conversation, but they have 5 billion things that they're trying to promote for themselves, or maybe they're doing at work. And just like the creative power it takes to draft something usually gets lost. They just it doesn't it's not a priority, which is fine. It's your show. It's not their show. So a lot of times that's kind of what I see kind of drops off. So giving them like a script of exactly what you've put out about the conversation, or maybe a script of what they could put out, tweaking the names or something a little bit, so that they can just easily copy and paste it and promote it wherever you're planning to go live. Is a really great way to promote and have their audience join you as well, and has been a really cool thing for me to see when we have different guests, like a host and a guest, and they join each other's podcasts, and then we see like a crossover of audience members, is super fun. And um, just a reminder, I posted a little bit about this in, I think it was last week, about how like appreciating those who join your live streams is huge, and it's what's creating the community online. So if you notice repeat people in your comment section, be sure to reach out to them and say thank you. Be sure to connect with them and kind of learn more about them, because if they're taking time to enjoy your live streams, like usually you're going to hit it off with them and you're probably going to have things in common, but also like just that, what's the word? Like exchange is good for everybody. So that is my bonus tip of how to kind of make things easier for your guests to promote. Um, and yeah, just remembering that the guests on your live show can make your show so wonderful. It can make things super fun and dynamic and introduce new ideas and introduce new things, but it also is kind of a wild card because I have had the most successful, wonderful people on shows before that have been so wildly disorganized and like it would be like down to 2 minutes where I'm like, I hope that they're coming. Like, I think they're coming. I've sent them the emails. I've sent them the calendar invite. Like, I don't know. Hopefully they'll be here. And then a minute before we're live, they'll pop in. And so, and it's so funny because usually those are the people who have been on multiple podcasts. They're super successful, super busy. And anyways, it's just funny to me because everybody that I think like, oh, okay, like they've got this podcast thing down. Like I don't need to worry about, following up with them or being kind of like, letting them, reminding them of it. Those are actually end up being the people who I'm like, whew, I'm really glad that I still send that day of email, that I send that calendar invite, and that I've gathered all the information from them because they're busy. They're busy people. And I like to make it as easy as possible on them to know what our audience needs from them and have them show up just ready for a conversation and kind of making it more about that and less about the technical side of it, which is what I handle in my business is all the technical things so that the host and the guests just get to pop in here and have a fun conversation and have it look pretty and go to all the places like it's supposed to go. So anyway, thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I hope you have enjoyed your July. I hope that you are having a wonderful summer. And please let me know. Reach out to me on LinkedIn, send me a DM. If you have any questions, drop them here. I am an open book and I would love to talk to you about live streaming. And thank you so much for being here. Bye.